Welcome back to Destination Abroad. My name is Emmy, and today we're talking to Enikő. Hi, Enikő. How are you?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Emasha. I'm all good. I'm in my sleep right now.
So you're not alone at the moment. Who's there with you?
Nope. I have my baby in my arms. She wasn't really ready to be asleep before this interview, so I'm holding her at the moment.
That's all right. So this hour is all about you. Let's start with a little bit of introduction. So where are you from? Where are you now? Something like that.
Yes, so I'm from Hungary, as you are. Within Hungary, I'm from Debrecen and Nyíregyháza, the eastern area of Hungary. And I am currently in Australia, Brisbane, Queensland. And we moved here in this year, January. So almost a year, pretty close to a year that we are here.
And whereabout are you in Australia? Brisbane.
Brisbane, Queensland.
Yeah. Oh, Queensland. Is it nice there? Do you like it there?
Yeah. The weather is great. It's just we are entering into spring, so the weather is just warming up, and now it's daily 26, 27 Celsius. So it's pretty good.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. But just to go back in time a little bit, this is not the first country you lived and worked in, or actually lived in. When did you leave Hungary first to go abroad?
Well, I was pretty young when I first left Hungary. I studied a year in US, in New York and San Francisco, I would say I almost had like a high school year, but it wasn't. I didn't attend a high school. I went to a private language school, and then I learned English pretty much for an entire year. And then I went back to Hungary to graduate from high school. And then afterwards, I lived in many other places, such as England, like yourself, in London for about a year. I went back to US for about 2 years, and then I met a guy who is now my partner and the baby daddy of my daughter. And then we lived in Canada, as he is Canadian. So, and then we came here together. So we pretty much visited most of the places before we came here, and then I lived in many places without him and with him too. So
wow,
the first time.
That's a lot of countries. So you obviously decided at a young age that you want to live somewhere else, or did you just want to experience a bit of a different culture? Or how did that happen?
I always felt the urge to explore other countries, cultures. I always liked English. I studied English, I think, in first grade, like 6 years old. And I was always interested in like living in a place where they speak English, so I could be speaking English. And we watched those movies like Home Alone and all these places where like you can see the like New York or other parts of US. And I was like, I want to live there. That's my calling. And I wanted to explore more. So I think it's from a very young age. I could say that I had something else in my mind than just staying in home and in Hungary and just live there forever.
And was it hard to move to England, for example? Because when you went to America, you went to school, so that's a bit different story. But when you went to England, you actually went to work there. Is that right?
Yeah, England was like, so I knew that I wanted to go somewhere, and then I wanted to try something closer first, as I was still a little younger than as I am now, and I was still attached to my friends, and I really like to live in Budapest, the city, and like Hungary is a pretty city, Hungary is a pretty country, and then Budapest is an awesome city. So I didn't really want to live for good. So I wanted to be somewhere that I could like earn more money, explore something, but still close enough to see my friends or visit whenever I want to. So I had friends who already lived in London, and they were willing to help me to, start a new life. So I was giving it a try, and I liked it. But then I met my previous partner in London, and I moved to US. I moved back to US with him. So there was always a calling to each country. Like London was the first that I actually committed to go and work and live there full time and see how it goes. And as many of us who left Hungary, we all had our reasons why.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And how long did you stay in London? Actually, can I ask, if it's not rude, can I ask how old were you when you went to London, and how long did you stay there?
Oh, that's not a rude question. As I'm not super old, so I have nothing to hide as far as age. I think I was in my early 20s. I went there in 2011. So yeah, so like 7 years ago, almost 8, I think. Yeah, I was like 22. Yeah. I lived there only like a year on and off. As I said, I met my previous partner in there, so I went to US with him for 3 months, and then I decided that okay, I'm gonna move to US. So I went back to England. I finished, whatever I had to do to be able to move to US, and then that was it. London was a short trip, I would say.
And what did you work there?
Well, as everyone else, I was not everyone else, but most of us, I think, I worked in the restaurant business. I was working as a waitress.
Would you say your English was really good, because you did study in America, but that's a different accent? And when you went to England, how did you feel? Like, did you feel that your English was good? Was it very different?
I think I'm pretty good at adjusting to like languages, and I think because the Hungarian is a super strong language, we kind of like our own language is much harder than any other language, I feel. So I think I adjusted to different accents and different language very quickly. But in London, British accent specifically, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. It's more like the slang, like some words that they use and I haven't used before, like the slangs, or some words that like they use it in a different concept, or the spelling that was like, I had to pay attention when I was like writing a letter or an email, that I changed the order of the letters because they spell it differently. So tiny details that they were different, but I wouldn't say it was so difficult.
Yeah, I understand. And what was your first impression of London? Because I've been to America, I've been to England, and they are two very different countries. So I'm interested to know, what did you think?
I think since I lived in New York, which is also a mix of cultures of a city, and London, where I lived in England, it was also a very similar spot, like very lively, lots of bars, restaurants, like something was always happening in the city, and there's lots of different nationalities living in there. So in that angle, they were both very similar. So it wasn't like a big difference. But as you said, the language was a little bit different. The people's, like the way they behave, or as they say that like British people are more like a little bit uptight. They are more polite, I would say, or like they have their differences, like just like everyone else. It's like every other country has their own, specification, if I can say that. So I didn't necessarily felt a lot of difference, but it was smaller than US, definitely. And that US, like at least New York and San Francisco, where I was mainly, they have like the skyscrapers, super tall building, crowd all the time. London, at the time when I was living there, was like the more historical, shorter buildings, different typical British buildings, and wasn't as crowded as I hear it is now. So for me, it was similar. I would say it wasn't like a big difference. Like if you would go from New York to, I don't know, Kenya, like 4 people, hot, and all that things, compared to New York.
And was it actually the first thought that came to my mind is like, was it like walking in a Mary Poppins movie?
Maybe if I think about the buildings,
yeah,
more classical.
Yeah. True. They have loads of historical, nice buildings there. And then, so you met your boyfriend. You went to America for 3 months, and then you moved to America.
Yes.
So, where did you move to?
First, I moved to California, near San Francisco. It's called San Francisco Bay Area, which is like the suburb, pretty much close to San Francisco. He was living there, and then because of his work, we relocated to Hawaii. So we lived in for a year. I lived in Hawaii, I think. Yeah. Good times. Tropical place, just like Brisbane.
I'm very jealous right now. How was Hawaii? Tell us more about Hawaii.
Hawaii is very nice. I was expecting, when you see a movie and you visualize Hawaii, you see the beach, you see the palm trees, you see the pineapples, you see the hula dancers, and this very like a cocktail in your hand and surfers and all that. But actually, we moved to Oahu Island, which is the home of the capital of Waikiki, Honolulu/Waikiki. So there was like pretty much same as California, like tall buildings, very city-like. It had like more like quiet, calm, resorty areas where like just locals, or a little bit further out like quiet resort or golf course, or all that places where like not as many people would be as in the city itself. So Oahu, in my opinion, had all the things that you would need if you would live in Hawaii. Like you could go away from the crowd, and you could join the touristy places, and then just go to restaurants and be there. Other islands, I haven't visited other islands, but I know and I heard that other islands are more like laid back, or much more quiet, like more greenery, more less touristy, and every island has their own personality. So I bet they're different too. But Hawaii is nice. All in all, it's nice weather all year round. Yeah, it's good. I can't say anything bad about it.
Sounds good to me. And then, did you actually work there as well?
In Hawaii? Yes, I did. I met my partner back then knew a Hungarian older person, I would say, that who owned properties in Hawaii, and then he needed someone like an Airbnb style. But back then it wasn't Airbnb; it was HomeAway or all other pages that advertise vacation rentals. And then he needed someone who could like manage his properties, so I was doing that.
Oh, so did you have to was it like being a receptionist or something like that?
No. It's just like like a host. Like I have to meet and greet the people who were coming to stay at his property. Once they left, I took care of the cleaning, and then I said goodbye to them, or sometimes I even dropped them at the airport or picked them up at the airport. So it's more like a host and greeter sort of position.
Oh, I see. And then, don't you need a visa to work in America?
Yes, you do. You need a green card or a work visa, or you need to be married to a person. to be able to work. But at that time, I did not have any of those. So, as most of the Hungarians, well, I wouldn't say most of the Hungarians. Lots of Hungarians are doing it illegally because it's very difficult to get that. I was in the process of eventually getting my papers, but our relationship took a different turn. And then, meanwhile, I was in the process. I wanted to earn money. So that's what happened.
You have to pay for food and accommodation, isn't it? So you have to work somehow.
In my opinion, it's very unfair as far as like, so it's like lots of people have issues like people being like illegal immigrants. And, you know, I totally agree. It would be really great. It would be really great if we didn't have to like work illegally. But it's also like in US especially, like if you have a partner who is American and you are from a different country, like myself, and you wanted to be together, you have a fiancé visa, which is allows you 3 months before you have to get married. Otherwise, you're gonna get kicked out. So, what my question is, or what I wonder about that, like, would anyone who made that rule allow their daughter or son get married after 3 months to a person they probably haven't lived with before? So you got the choice to like either get married to a pretty much stranger after 3 months, or get the person to move out of their country to your country, maybe if your country is more acceptable towards the other nationality. So I think it's a pretty unfair system, and sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yes, it is difficult. I agree with you. Yeah, she wants to be in the interview as well.
She wants to see what's going on. Who am I talking to? Why I'm not talking to her?
Hello.
Hello. Say hi, everyone. Yeah. So yeah, it's very difficult. Sometimes getting a visa or getting the proper visa is very difficult. It varies in each country, but I think from out of the countries that I've been, America was the most difficult to get any kind of visa without, like, you know, like people can say that like, oh, they are not there illegally because they got a green card, but most of them got the green card because they married a stranger just for the green card. So is that better, like forcing people to get married or cheat? I don't know. I hope one day that will be easier for people, so there will be no boundaries, no, you know, it would be easier for people live where they would like to live, or where they, you know, it wasn't my choice. I want to pay taxes. I want to, you know, support the country that I am living in. But at that time of my life, that wasn't possible in US, and eventually that made me move back to Hungary.
Okay, and how did it feel like moving back to Hungary after being abroad for so long?
I hope Hungarians won't hate me so much, but it was horrible. You know, like, well, think about it, like really. I lived in Hawaii and then I moved back in, I think it was February, and it was like, you know, very cloudy, cold time of the year. The trees were like all just branches, no leaves, no colors. It was like, I felt like I'm just like stepping into a depression. So it wasn't so good. I had my friends, I had my family, so I had some sort of a support system, and that was I was happy to see them. But at the same time, I was sad to leave something that I liked behind. So it was bittersweet experience.
Yes, I understand the feeling. But then you didn't stay home for long, did you?
No, I think it was about a year before I moved again. I know it was but for the record, I know that it's gonna be just a temporary move to Hungary until I figure out where to go next, where I can get legal papers, where I can, you know, what are my options in regard of moving to other countries.
So what were your plans at this point?
at this point, I knew that I wanted to move to English-speaking country, and since America was off the list at the moment, and I've been in England, I was thinking to moving to Canada or Australia. I have cousins living in Australia and here, so that was a very strong point on that side. Also, you know, I had never been to Australia and I heard lots of good about it. So I was really leaning towards to Australia, but then I met my current partner, and he was Canadian, so I moved to Canada. Because yeah, so yeah, and then so I ended up going to Canada, and then Canada became my home for 3 years.
Wow, 3 years. And which part of Canada was that?
I was in British Columbia, so that's the west side of Canada. It's above Seattle, close to the US border. As I hear, the best part of Canada, although I haven't been in other parts of Canada. So, I mean, I did go to Calgary, which is in Alberta, but compared to that, it's probably the best side of Canada. But I haven't been in Toronto or Montreal, which is supposed to be super nice, very popular destination as well.
I've lived in Toronto, or Toronto, as they say, and it was actually really nice. Yeah, Canada is a very nice country. People are generally very nice, very friendly. Did you feel like they were welcoming you, or how did you feel?
Yeah, Canadians are great. I would say, in my experience, they are the best people on this planet so far. They are very intelligent. They are very polite. They are very welcoming. They are very supportive. I would say they are. I think they see the world a little differently. They are like, feels like they are always a step ahead of you. Like they are in the future, while Australia or Hungary or other countries are not so much, in my experience. They are like still a little bit behind. Even if you are talking about, you know, like things like gay marriage or medical solutions or eco-friendliness or all that, things that currently are popular items on popular issues around the world. And Canadians feel like they already sorted all this out. So yeah, they don't really have too much problem about this stuff.
Yeah, it sounds good. I agree with your opinion. And what was it like to get the visa and then to get work there? Was it easy or was it very difficult?
First time I went with a tourist visa. Tourist visa, when I first went, was like, you don't need anything. For Hungarians, we're on that list where you just go and then they just stamp 6 months in your passport and then you're good to go. Now Canada also started to do the travel authorization, online travel authorization, like ESTA or ETA in Australia, that like you go online, you fill out some stuff and you pay about $10 and you're getting this 2-year paper, I would say, 2-year allowance of staying in Canada for 3 months or 6 months a year. Though while I was there in my tourist visa, I could extend. So I was extending it for like 6 months, 1 year, as long as you have finances to cover yourself, because you're not allowed to work on that visa. Finances to cover yourself, or you have a good reason to stay. They let you. They will give you the extension, however long you want it. So while I was there on my extension, we applied for this so-called common law visa, like it's a partner visa. If you are married or you became in a long-term relationship with someone and you live together, after a year you can apply to that visa. And we had to send in the paperwork. It took us about 9 months, if I'm correct, to get the actual PR card, which is allowing me to be a citizen of Canada as long as pretty much I live. So
wow, 9 months is a long time.
Not really. I mean, it is a long time, but compared to times that I'm hearing people and waiting for their paperwork or they are putting up on the websites, that was a very quick one. When I was applying, they were saying if you apply, there were like several options how you can apply. Like you could apply outside of Canada, meanwhile you are inside physically. So I could send all my stuff to the Canadian embassy in Hungary, which doesn't exist anymore. It was in Vienna. Or I could send my papers inside Nova Scotia in Canada. And for example, the inside version, that when I send my paper, if I was gonna send my papers to Nova Scotia, it would have been anywhere between 12 months and 24 months before I get my papers, or just to see if my application is being accepted. And if I were to apply through the Vienna embassy, that period of time was much less. It was 12 months to 15 months. So I went with this option to get it as soon as it's possible. And by the time my paper got there and then the application started, they reduced the time. So it was like maximum of 12 months either way, and mine came through earlier. So, but when I actually got the card, it was an additional 3 months, I think, because once they confirm that you were granted the PR card, you have to leave the country and re-enter officially land. This they call. So we have to drive through the border and just do a U-turn and come back to say that, okay, I'm here, give me my card. And then that's when they just give you the confirmation that, okay, you officially landed. So now you just wait for the card and you're good to go.
That's it. And what kind of papers did you need to provide?
Oh, lots of papers. I think they are pretty much similar as in here in Australia, but all of your identification, like birth certificate, passports, copy of everything. You needed to fill out, like, I don't know, 5-6 different forms, like each were at least 6-7 pages. I had to list where I was living in all my addresses in the last 10 years. So for me, it was pretty difficult because I lived in several countries, and within the countries in several rentals, apartments and all that. And then all my schools that I went to, all my workplaces where I worked. And, for 10 years, it's a long time. So sometimes I had to go through my old emails. Thank God I saved some emails to know that where I was working or where I was living at the time. So it is a big work to put it together. But once you have your application ready, it's really just a matter of time. They ask for more documents, or they just tell you that, like, okay, your application is great. Here is your approval, or not. in my case, it was all good.
So it sounds like you were all set in Canada, and you said you lived there for 3 years. But then, what happened? What made you move away?
My partner is working for an engineering firm, and that firm, in like 2 years ago, I think, merged with an Australian firm. So lots of Australian colleagues of his were coming to Canada to work in the Canadian office. And then so we got the idea that, we should maybe go to Australia, to the Australian office. And the company, the owners or whoever makes the decision, were agreeing that they wanted someone with his experience or with his qualifications in the Australian office, one of the Australian offices, and here we come. So we came.
Oh, I see. And how was it for you? Was it hard to leave Canada, or was it just another adventure?
When we came, it wasn't hard because we were exciting, new country, warm weather, better pay. Like, we heard lots of good things about it, and none of us been in Australia, so we were really excited to move. There was a little bit of a sadness, of course, because my partner's, all of his family is in Canada. his all high school friends and all everything that's related to him it's there. Also, as I said, Canada is a great place to live. So yeah, it was a big decision, but we were hoping to find all that here too in Australia. And then at the time when we actually moved, I was already 4 months pregnant, so it was a little difficult in regards of the healthcare and all that. But we made it work. We wanted to make it work.
Oh, did you know you were pregnant? Did you plan to get pregnant?
No, we didn't we weren't planning to get pregnant when we actually got pregnant. When we decided we're gonna move to Australia, we weren't pregnant yet. And then by the time we got our visa and all papers were signed, that's pretty much about when I found out that I'm pregnant. So we were not gonna have a baby for another year, as we were obviously as a couple we're talking about having a baby eventually, but we wanted to spend the first year in Australia traveling and explore a little bit. But she decided she wants to join us earlier, so that's how it happened to us.
And then, did it make it more difficult in terms of visa or finding a property, that sort of thing?
For visa, since I was pregnant, she didn't need a visa because she was still in my belly when we crossed the border. And afterwards, because she was born here, she got the same visa as we got. So we just have to submit her passport, and then they're just gonna put the exact same visa in it as we have. For finding a house and other stuff, it wasn't hard because, again, she was still in my belly when I was looking for apartments. It was just more difficult on me physically. It was like super hot and humid, going for inspections and trying to find something that we all could use and like. So, but now it was more the difficulty being pregnant or moving here while I was pregnant was more like doctors and hospital and all the different healthcare system to find out how we can afford to give birth, because in our visa we didn't have Medicare, which is the government funded healthcare system. So we didn't get that one. We had to have our own private insurance, but our private insurance doesn't cover pregnancy. Only if you had your insurance 12 months prior before you find out you were pregnant. So unfortunately, we weren't in that situation. So we had to pay out of pocket, which is not cheap, but we also got lucky because after many research and all that, we found out that Canada has exceptions for its residents, meaning because we are on a temporary visa here right now, Canada thinks of us as residents outside of country. So meaning that we are just on a vacation, a long vacation. So we are not staying in Australia forever. We are just temporary workers, visitors. So we just left Canada temporarily, and therefore they are funding your healthcare in other countries. So they don't pay the full amount, but they pay as much as they would pay if you were in Canada. So we just had to submit all our invoices, doctors' bills, and all that, and partially they paid back. So after these refunds, it wasn't so bad. Obviously, it would have been much cheaper if we had Medicare or if we were Australians, but we didn't know what's gonna happen, so we couldn't prepare for that part.
Yeah, no. To be honest, I don't know much about Australian visa and Medicare, because your husband was relocated because of work. I would assume they sort out your visa. Is it what happened, or is it not how it works?
Yeah, they were the one who, like, we had to send all of our paperwork and forms and identifications and all that. We had to send to the company's lawyers, and then they were taking care of the visa. But since they wanted my partner to be here as soon as possible, they chose the quickest visa option, which was the 457. That's the temporary worker visa. Now they changed their name, but anyway, that was the quickest one. And this one, because it's temporary, you don't get all the benefits with it as you would get with another kind of type of visa.
Oh, I see. And can you apply for a different type of visa later on, or is
Yep.
it for good now?
So this visa is valid for 4 years. So after 3 years, within these 4 years, after 3 years, we could start to apply for PR, permanent residency, and become permanent residents, and later on become Australian citizens. But we actually were just talking to the lawyer this morning. But because my partner's job as a mechanical engineer, that's on Queensland's wanted list, so like the workers they need or they look for, we could start to apply earlier than 3 years. So we're probably going to start to apply next January, and hope for the best and hopefully become PR earlier than that. So our life would become a little bit easier as of now. Because as far as having a baby in Canada, not just that the healthcare is not free for us, or amongst many other things, childcare is very expensive because we are not allowed for any fundings, or not getting any support from the government, or there is no parent leave, or no maternity pay for me, or all that sort of things that, like, you could get if you're a citizen. With this visa we can get. So if we plan to stay longer, want to buy a house and all that, we would need to get a better visa or the permanent residency card to be able to afford all that.
Yeah, it sounds expensive. So you haven't decided yet whether you're going to stay in Australia or maybe move back to Canada. What are the options?
Well, we are back and forth. Like, we are, yes, as you say, we are a little bit undecided yet. We like Australia, and we do miss Canada. So now that we have a little, experience here in Australia, we know what was better in Canada or what's better here, and then we miss Canada a lot. But for my partner, here is lots of options, more opportunities as far as his career, and the pay is better here, the weather is better here. So what we decided, that we will see how that permanent residency application goes. So let's say if we apply next year and we could get it in a short period of time, we would give it a go and then see, purchase a house, start our life here, and then if you don't like it, you can always sell your house and move back. But if we don't get the PR, probably we're just gonna use up the visa we have, that's 4 years that we're allowed, and then see how it goes after that.
You can always go back to Canada, I guess.
Yeah, my partner is a citizen. I'm a PR. Our daughter Harper is a citizen too. So for us, we have a safe place in Canada.
And if you are married to a Canadian, don't you automatically get residency or not residency, citizenship?
No, unfortunately, no. It's U.S. has something similar. Like, if you married to an American, you get a green card, and after I think 2 years of holding a green card, you can go and get a citizenship for yourself. But in Canada, it's not automatic. It's if you are married or you have a common law, sure, they call it de facto partner. You go through the process that I went through. You get permanent residency, and I think after 3 years of permanent residency, you can apply to become a citizen. But no, you are not. You are not getting citizenship just like that, unfortunately. But yes, that's. I think that's
what a pity.
everywhere.
Sorry, what did you say?
I said it's pretty much the same everywhere, like in the US, Canada, and Australia. Like you have to go through a long process for getting your citizenship.
Yay, we can see more of Harper.
Yeah, she wanted to say something. She was just like talking and wanted to join the conversation. She's lucky. You know, that's probably the best thing about traveling and living in many countries, that now she's holding 2 citizenship, and she's 3 months old, and she could live in Canada or Hungary or within the European Union everywhere, or anywhere, if she wanted to. And that's a big advantage, I think.
Yes.
She wanted to go through all this paperwork and process to get visas and, you know, residency in these places.
Yeah, she's a lucky baby. And then this is just out of interest. Do you speak to her in Hungarian and your husband in English?
My husband is not my husband, actually, just my partner. We are not married yet, but yeah, he's Canadian, so he doesn't really speak in Hungarian. He's trying to learn, but not there yet. We can't have a full-on conversation. So when he's home, we all speak English. When just the 2 of us, I try to speak to her in Hungarian. Like I try to force myself. It's just pretty hard because normally most of my days I speak English. So sometimes I just catch myself talking English to her, and then I'm like, wait, no, you need to learn Hungarian, and I switch.
Yes, I know the feeling. You're in that environment that everything is English, everyone speaks to you in English, so your whole mind switch to the English world, and then when you're with Hungarians, you switch back to the Hungarian world thing.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's very confusing for me and probably for her too, that sometimes I speak Hunglish, like I start speaking English and then I just drop a few Hungarian words in the sentence, or the other way around, and I'm trying to say things in Hungarian. Sometimes the Hungarian word doesn't come to my mind, and I say the English version of the word, so it gets a little confusing time to time, but as long as I be able to teach her conversational English and Hungarian, then I think we are good. Hopefully in the school, once she's at school age, she can learn a 3rd language and can get her English straightened out. So and obviously I'm planning to, once she's a little bit older, I'm planning to take her to Hungary for a longer period of time, so she can, you know, spend time with the cousins and my mom and my sisters, and she can talk to her other family in Hungary.
Have you been back to Hungary with her yet?
No, she's only 3 months, so we recently got her Hungarian passport made, so we are still waiting for the actual passport. So until that arrives, we cannot add her Australian visa to it, and so this is gonna take a few months before that happens. And once that happens, then we can go outside of the country. We can travel farther too. So we are planning to go back next summer once she's a little bit older, and then we're gonna have family visiting us in the next few months. So I think we're gonna be pretty busy, so we can have any other time to, you know, just go travel before summer. So.
Oh, I see. And so how does your family feel about this? Were they a bit maybe worried or upset that you left the country and you're living in different countries so far away from Hungary as well?
No, my parents are pretty modern. They are very open-minded, and they both like traveling. And for one, I think because when they were my age, they couldn't really afford to do these things. It was harder to travel, harder to live abroad. So I think they're very supportive of the idea. Plus, I have two younger sisters. They live in Hungary. But our family is pretty independent. My parents raised us to be very independent. So even when I was living in Hungary, I was living in a capital with my grandma. During university, I barely visited my family because like it's expensive. When I was in the university, it was expensive to take the train every weekend. It was a long time, like 3 hours train one direction. So I was not interested in doing that. So most of the weekends I spent with my friends, or I was working. Or it really depends on what time you're talking about. But I think our family is used to not being always together, always in each other's back. So I think that's a really that they are not like nagging that, oh, don't go or come back, or they know that I'm longing for something else, and they are fine with it. And
yeah,
I'm
they
lucky.
support you.
Yeah, and I'm lucky because if they want, they could visit me. Not as often if I was living in Europe, but
Yeah, it's a long way to Australia, and also because of the time differences, time difference. Is it hard to keep in touch? Is it hard to communicate with the people at home?
Yeah, especially with my friends. With my family is much easier, as everyone is self-employed, I would say, in my family. So they they can talk to me during the day. They don't have a boss who's like saying like, no, you cannot Skype right now. So we can make it happen. So most of the time when it's my afternoon here in Australia, that's their morning. So usually that's when I talk to my family. And with my friends, usually just the weekends are our options if we are not out somewhere, or if they don't have any other plans. But that's very hard to manage because most of them has kids, or they work on the weekends, or they have their own life. So it's hard to schedule um, um, video chats or any kind of communication. So we stick to the messenger, sending a longer letter via email, or trying to keep in touch. But it is hard time to time to have an actual conversation just like we are having now.
Yes, I know the feeling. And so you're there with your partner. Have you made any friends? What is it like in Australia? Because your partner works, so obviously he's got his colleagues, but you're at home with the baby.
Well, since we don't know each other very well, but my friends or people that I know me, they know that like I'm not a very quiet, shy, sitting on my butt kind of person. I like to make friends. I'm pretty easy to make friends with. So I everywhere I go, I make friends very quick because I socialize. I get in touch with people. So here it wasn't any different. Here I started with a little bit of advantage because I had a friend, like a couple, so they were our friends in Vancouver, Canada, when we were living there, and they were Australians. And then they moved back to Australia just before we moved here, and they live about like 30 minutes away from us. So we already had them. They were very helpful. They picked us up from the airport when we landed. We stayed with them for a few weeks before our apartment became available. And then besides them, as I said, I have cousins. They live in Melbourne. We're gonna spend Christmas with them, I think, this year. And yeah, there are like Hungarian moms all over the area. There is one mom, Sabina, that I find out about her through my sister. She knew my sister from Hungary, so my sister mentioned her, and then I got in touch with her, and now we are talking on a daily basis. She has a 1-year-old, and also like Facebook. There's a plenty of mom groups and all sorts of yoga groups and all that are helping you to socialize or find like-minded people. So I'm running, actually, I'm one of the admin in one of the mom groups in Brisbane. So I'm running like meetups, like Moms and Bubs tea, morning tea, or the movie session that I mentioned you before, and all that, happenings all over town. So I think I found my way to keep busy and not get bored just being home and looking after this little munchkin.
Yeah, because sometimes it can be very difficult to socialize in another country. It's not your own language. Everything is new. But are there lots of other immigrants where you are, or are there more Australians in the area?
I think in lots of immigrants around here, lots of Hungarians that I know. I'm not necessarily, when I'm looking for friends, I'm not necessarily looking for like similar background people. Like, I'm not necessarily looking for Hungarians or immigrants or I do look for moms these days because I have more common conversation topics with them. But but I really just look for like-minded people who have the same vision or same ideas, or we can just like connect on some level. I met a German lady who's married to an Australian man, and she has her daughter was born like 2 days after my daughter was born. So like, small connections like this. Or I actually have one of my friends here. We used to work together in Hungary. So she married an Australian man, and they live not far away from us. So, there are people who I can connect with. So it's not hard. We live in a suburb, 20 minutes from the city center, approximately 20 minutes. It's a very quiet, family-friendly area with nice people. So, this I really like about this suburb, that it's kind of like an old town that people like say hello to you like randomly, like you don't even, and then you smile back and say hello, and people keep an eye out for each other, not like they don't ignore one another, which is very, very nice to have.
Oh, that sounds ideal. For some people, Australia is like the far, far land. How did it live up to your expectations after seeing movies or after what you've heard?
It's because it's, you say, as a far, far land. Like I don't really know much about it. Everyone was like joking and warning about the poisonous animals or dangerous animals that, spiders, snakes, sharks, and all that. I haven't met any of them, luckily, and I wasn't really fearing them anyways, because we had dangerous animals in Canada too, just like, but they are not like living right by your buildings, so it's not something that easily can happen to you. It happens, but I didn't know too much about Australia, so I didn't really have expectation. I was assuming that it's probably similar to Canada and US, so it's much more in the future, way ahead of Hungary. It's not, how would I say? It's not a outdated country. I'm not going to the caveman ages or whatever. So I was expecting to be like nice and modern and all that, which is sort of true, not compared to Canada, but like I would say it's a step ahead of Hungary. It's a step behind Canada, so it's somewhere in the middle. I really like the weather, so that expectation became real and true. And it's I'm still exploring, still learning about it, but so far most of the things are good that I was expecting that to happen. It happened, or I expected to have palm trees on the street. That's here.
And what would you say to people if they want to move to Australia, let's say? Do you have any advice what to look out for, or something that you didn't know before that you wish you would have known?
Sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, so what would you say to people if they want to move to Australia? Do you have any advice to look out for something that maybe you wish you would have known before?
Yeah, advice or information. Those want to. Well, it's prepare. Like I think that's it's one of the main things to hear. Like prepare to get the visa that you need, because otherwise you can't come in to begin with. And once you have your proper visa or paperwork to come in here, find a job. Maybe if you can, like try to find your job before even coming here, because the companies can sponsor you, so you save yourself like money and struggle. And travel. I think Austria is pretty expensive to travel within, but it's very pretty. So if you can, like save up and try to go on weekend trips and explore. That's what we are doing at the moment. We just had our first trip with her to Sydney, which was very nice. We are planning to go to Melbourne soon, so trying to explore. Besides that, I don't really know what I can tell to someone who is moving here. Just be open-minded, I guess.
Oh yeah, no, that's the best advice you can give. I think be open-minded and prepare. Yeah. I can see with her that our time is up. She's getting restless. She probably wants to have her mommy back.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for talking to us, and I wish you a pleasant stay in Australia. And have a lovely day.
Thank you for that, and I hope the same for you wherever you are, and then safe travels as well. And thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
No, it was my pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.